I just got off a rather chaotic live stream discussion about this movie, so I feel like I'm a bit talked out. I will try to make this brief. The movie that I am discussing right now is Drop. It was Regal's Mystery Movie Monday, and kind of figured that it was going to be that. I was interested in this film because the trailer looked interesting. It's a pretty sleek movie, a tight script. It's only about an hour and a half long. The basic premise is this woman goes on a first date with a guy that she met on a dating app, and they've been conversing back and forth for a while, and they decide they want to meet and have a date. So that's what they do. She goes on this date, and then she starts receiving drop messages on her iPhone. Conveniently, she has an iPhone because it's the only way I think this could have worked. The messages get increasingly threatening, and she is instructed to do certain things during the course of this date. And then at some point, she is also instructed to kill her date. And she does not understand why, and she is not a killer. So this is very, very difficult for her, and she is trying to put up a front of being fully engaged in this date and the conversation, but her mind is understandably distracted by this request that has been made of her. What is forcing her to do this thing, I forgot to mention, was that her son is in danger by someone in her house. If she does not do this thing, there is a very real threat that her son will be killed. Overall, I enjoyed this film. I do have some quibbles with it. They're pretty typical for movies like this when it comes to things like suspension of disbelief, but there were enough pros to this movie that those issues are kind of overcome by everything else that I enjoyed about this story. One was the pacing. It was pretty quick. We get an intro to this character. We get a bit of backstory to her, then an intro to her in present day. Then she goes on this date, then things happen, and then, of course, the ending. Very efficiently paced for the most part. I liked the acting. I felt like this actress did a great job. She played in The Unbreakable Boy. That was the first time I noticed her as an actor. And the gentleman who played her date, I don't think I'd seen him before, but I kept thinking he was a Hemsworth. I was thinking, see the older brother? But I don't think so, because I've seen the older brother in movies before, and this doesn't really look like him, but doggone it, he looks like a Hemsworth. No, he's not a Hemsworth. He's an American actor from New Jersey. So anyway, whatever. I thought he was great. I thought everyone in here did a really good job. The supporting characters were done very well, especially the guy who plays their waiter. This happens to be his first day on the job, and this poor fellow is just caught up in so much chaos that happens throughout the course of the evening. That added some comedy to this movie. I did not expect that Drop would be as funny as it was in different places. And the comedy felt fitting, and it didn't feel like it was anything that was really goofy. It helped to kind of lighten the mood a little bit because there's some pretty heavy stuff that's going on. So I really did like that. I also like that there were moments where during her date with this guy and her, just trying to figure out what to do, there were a couple of moments where there's this camera work done that demonstrates how isolated she is feeling from everybody around her because of what she is going through. And I felt like that was pretty effective technique. They would do things like darken everything around her, and it was just her, and like with light on her, and that's all you see is her. So I thought that was interesting. There were other things that I enjoyed about this. Just the premise itself was pretty interesting. It's one of those typical stories that we've seen multiple times where a person is put in a situation where something very dire is happening, but for purposes of protecting someone else, they have to pretend like everything is fine. And that adds this level of suspense because you can completely sympathize with what they're going through, and it's interesting to see how are they going to figure out how to get out of this mess or, navigate this problem that they're having. So those are the pros. I do recommend this movie. I'm going to give it a good rating, and it might end up on my favorites for the year. That's how much I enjoyed it. Having said that, there are some issues that I have with it, and they are just issues with the writing, and I understand the point of some of these things that were put in there, but they don't make sense realistically given the situation. I will try to give you examples without being specific because I do not want to give you spoilers. There is a moment where the character is told that she needs to get something without her date knowing. So she figures out how to do this, but while she's in the process of getting this thing, she stops to take the time to look at stuff. This stuff that she is looking at, it is important for us, for the audience to know, because it gives you backstory as to why people are after this guy, why they want him dead. But realistically, it's not something that she would have taken the time to do. She was being used as a tool to show the audience what we needed to know, but it was not realistic given the situation. Realistically, she would have just quickly gotten this thing that she needed to get and not even looked at anything else. That was one of the first issues that I mentioned in my notes. And then there was something else also that occurred to me that it was, and I've touched on this already, and we talked about this in the stream. She had an iPhone. What would have happened if she had an Android? How would they have been able to do this thing that they did? They wouldn't have been able to, so they would have been shit out of luck. Unless there's a comparable app that Android has similar to this one, I don't know. Unless the app in this movie is completely made up. That's possible. I'm not an iPhone user, so I don't know. You guys fill me in. Or I mean, I could check it out myself, but if you guys have had experience with this app, I'd be curious to hear about it. It seems a little creepy, honestly. So, okay, then another thing. There is some stuff that happens once the reveal occurs, and it involves, at some point, a window being broken. And the things that happen when this window is broken, I'm a little bit skeptical that that would have really happened, at least to the degree that it shows. Keeping it vague again. Another thing, she is told to do something with a particular thing that she's been given. From what I could tell when I was watching it, she very clearly did this thing. And then something else is revealed that indicates maybe we didn't really see what we thought we saw, but I'm pretty sure we saw what we saw. And I feel like watching this again, and I will probably watch it again, when that happens, I'm going to pay more attention. Because if we did really see what I think we saw, that's another issue with the writing. And then another thing, and obviously it sounds like it's piling up, but honestly, all the other stuff that was so enjoyable about this, it just makes these things minor in my brain. But I do want to mention them because they did stand out to me. There was a scene where a person has to get from point A to point B geographically in this city, but the location they are starting at and the location that they end up at feels like that was a little bit too much time compression. That's definitely not realistic given where point B was located. And then the final thing is there's a person who has a firearm and they are not far away, and they use this firearm in a way that realistically it should have been effective, but it ends up being not so much. And that stood out to me as being pretty improbable as well. Those are the main things. If I rewatch it, I might pick up on some other stuff that stands out as being a bit weak on the writing. But again, it was such an entertaining and enjoyable watch. And there was laughter because of the humor. And I just feel like that helps balance things out a bit. So it keeps these issues that I have from bogging this movie down too much, and that's why this film is going to be a recommend from me. But curious to hear what you guys think if you get the chance to watch it. You'll probably pick up on some of this stuff that I'm mentioning, and you might find other stuff that just hasn't occurred to me yet. But at this point, I don't have much more to say about Drop, so I'm going to be wrapping this one up, and we'll see you in the next video, whenever that is. Bye.